Hello, welcome to another edition of Transcendent CEO, where we're exploring cutting edge leadership in the modern world. My name is Andrea Albright, and I am here with the incredible Satyan Raja, who's coming to us live from the magical island of Hawaii. Aloha, Satyan.
Aloha, it's beautiful here, and it's a little dark here, excuse the lighting, but I promise you that the lusciousness is all going to pour through today, okay?
We're going to have an amazing episode because our guests today are two very special people. They are partners in life and love, and they are creating a global empire that is changing how humans handle, deal with, relate, and communicate about sex and relationship. To say they are a power couple is an understatement. You are going to get so much from this interview today. Welcome, Ian and Jaiya.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being with us. Can you please just share some of your background and why you are here as a transcendent leader in your space?
I can start with all the crazy decades.
All the crazy decades. The decades of work.
Yeah,
and the decades of not being a transcendent leader.
Yes. Many years over 2 decades, I've been working in the field of human sexuality and really in the body and understanding, working with a lot of people in a one-on-one context, but also running a company. So I was in my business as a practitioner, almost like a doctor, was the way that the business was. And I found myself getting really, really burnt out eventually, trying to run the company and see all the clients and manage our relationship and our household.
And a kid. Yeah, and everything else that comes along with that.
All of it. And what's been really interesting is the framework of erotic blueprints, which is a framework that kind of came organically out of all my work with people over the years, was something that we knew it would be something really amazing for the world. And it's just been this continual unfolding and blossoming with that. So that's been really, really exciting.
And, there's been a lot of steps along the way. We've done a lot of coaching. We've done a lot of mentorship with business experts, marketing experts. And for many of those years, it was like pushing a boulder uphill because often what was happening, which we didn't know at the time, is that the coaches that we were going to, experts, world-renowned people, they had huge platforms. And what was going on is most of them are coaching us to what we call a phase 3 business, where you've got it all established. You've got your inner network.
It's
automated. And you're speaking to thousands. And that type of business runs very differently from where we realized and soon learned from some other coaches we needed to begin. And that was a big turnaround at the beginning of just like, okay, we can actually, Jaiya would get 30,000 hits to the website and we'd get nothing, no clients, just like, hey, this is great stuff, but no clients. And Jaiya was speaking for Tony Robbins. She had 4 books published, speaking on stages all over the world.
Lots of media,
like major media, TV media, and nothing was happening. So one of the first fulcrum moves was finding a couple of coaches who were actually like, hey, you guys have to start at phase 1 business, which is speaking to people, getting them on a phone, getting them into your sessions. And that was the beginning of the transition, but that was still not operating in what we're speaking to here, which is the transcendent leadership and transcendent CEO zone, because there was still lots of doing, lots of effort, lots of stress, and not a sense of spaciousness around being in our business and working in our business, being in our business and being with our clients. There was not spaciousness. It just, everything was like too much.
And one thing I'll speak to here in terms of leadership was, one, I was afraid of moving into what that really meant. Like I had all kinds of ideas about what leadership looked like, and I'm reading lots of books, but I was terrified in some aspect of moving into it because, well, my past traumas didn't show up so much in my relationship with Ian. They showed up in my business leadership. So I was like I called myself a tyrannical business leader. My theme was, I can do it better than everybody else. So why the heck am I paying these people when I can do it faster, better? The
results
I
are
got
worse
this,
right.
and then also just, I'm paying you, do the stuff, like, and then I draw in too, with the dynamic, I would draw in people onto the team that had their own stuff, and all the trauma is like playing out in my own leadership style and in the team. It was just really interesting to, in hindsight now, go, wow. But while in it, it was a really big pain point. I just felt like I'm never going to have what I want, because I can't find the people, because I don't know how to lead them. And I'd be mad half the time.
You'd often say, I'm a terrible CEO. I'm a terrible leader. I suck at this.
Yeah.
Really beating yourself up.
I'm really good at coaching people, but not leading a team.
Leading. It was the management of people.
Yes.
As opposed to beginning to create systems of support. There's the specific phrase, I'm always forgetting it, that Satya talks about: empowered control. Empowering people on our team, as opposed to trying to control them.
I'd either over control or I'd abandon.
Like, oh, now that I've handed that in your court, go. And they have no idea what they're doing. Not really good leadership to get your team members to succeed. Mm-hmm. And then you come back frustrated with the results because they didn't have that grounding in what was supposed to be done. And things were going great, like business increasing. But again, we would tend to, if left our own devices, run towards complexity and adding more elements in. And and an example, like, we're pretty much in a transition moment of really moving into a very spacious business. And the business that...
Thank you, Sachin.
Yes, thank you, Sachin. And the business that we had created for ourselves was one with no room. It was like so much delivery, so much promise to clients, feeling like...
And we're sold out. It's great, but we can't, like...
But there's no capacity, no space left for us to grow personally, and for us to actually really be the representation of our brand. So the transcendent leadership piece... I don't know if we want to get in a metaphysical aspect.
Please, okay. Feel free to share whatever is real. I think the quality of the listeners here are really open to the whole spectrum. We've laid down the foundations that the inner terrain of our being, the inner terrain is what creates the architecture in our business. So to the degree of complication, to the degree we've got these traumas, to degree we've got these struggle ideas, to the degree we got these imprints on how we should grow business from other people's points of view and such, which could be very valid. We're taking all of that, trying to create some type of stew and creating a business which can be successful on one dimension. Looking at the numbers, you have phenomenal success. That's fantastic. Your workshops are filled a year in advance, like you're all done this whole year, not one space. Yet the challenge is that architecture cannot sustain itself. And I want you to know, and as I've shared with you, this is not uncommon in the growth of any business, of scaling anything. We have to be able to realize that the mechanisms of control and architecture and creation that formed it to get to some level of success, a particular level of success, those same principles may not work, most likely will not work, for the next stage of evolution, for you as beings to enjoy life, let alone the thriving of the business. So I'm really glad that you've taken on these philosophies and principles and actually created it and put it right into the architecture of your business, because now you're going to see a whole new flowering of space for yourselves. Because you, as the owners, as the leaders of the organization, when you're in your highest synergy with each other, when you have spaciousness, when you have the capacity to flow with life and not always be conscripted around doing, then you're living a life of freedom and spirit. This is the ultimate entrepreneurial wish, is to have a life of total freedom. And so you're on that path, and I'm very, very, very grateful for your dedication and your willingness and courage to shift old models, although successful, to have even greater success with what's new.
For sure. so the metaphysical piece really, so for me, this has been present for a while, and in finding Satyan, like before really diving in with Satyan's work and the Transcendent CEO work, it was already beginning to be present for me, but I didn't have the access or the tools or the ability to really go like, oh, this actually can work. And what I'm talking about is the clearing up of conflicting forces inside of myself. Of I've got to be busy and focus, and I really need to relax, and I need all of this time. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've got this handled. Like all of this kind of like warring aspects of myself, and being able to get clear that these are different voices appearing inside of me and integrating them, finding out that they're actually one and the same. And in the integration, clearing all of the energy. So that internal spaciousness that we're talking about has really in the last 6 months begun to open up for me, where I've always been the type of like, here's the nitty gritty, here's the detail. So I get the task done and then I feel, yay, good for myself. But I've lost the long picture. I've lost the sense of what for me is the very creative and connected way of being in business. And as I've cleared all those pieces out, there's an empty space from which I get to be. I get to be in all that there is to do and move towards the highest leverage thing. Whereas before I would just move to the urgent thing.
Or the low fruit, and
to get something
I would say
done.
It's like this. The energy is just like he's like in this muck and the minutiae and the emails, and learning to delegate and let go of all of that. I think for both of us has been a really big piece. And one of the things that has been really a big needle mover for me was coming to self-realization. And you, Sachin, talk about this framework of glow, flow, and function. And one of the reasons why I wanted to work with you was because I hit glow and I don't care anymore about like functioning or last night I was actually like, Sachin's going to keep me alive. No pressure. but this piece on I just have no interest anymore on looking at a bill or an email or like how then to balance once you've had these states of non-dual consciousness, or just this is it. So I'm just gonna sit here and watch it unfold, but I still need to eat and probably not lay in bed all day. And I think some people, when they hit this loop, like when as a transcendent CEO, you hit that self-realization, sometimes it all falls apart. And for me, it was really interesting because the things that fell were a lot of my disciplines, because I was a high performer, high achiever. I had a spreadsheet that had 73 things on it that I did daily and I would mark off. And then I had my weekly things and then my monthly things. And I would, every day, it was just like my high performance stuff in every area. And that was the thing that just, and any attachment I had to any identity as a leader. So all these identities that were wrapped up in Jaiya needs to look a certain way or be beautiful with this leadership out in the world, or that I have to behave a certain way or I have to weigh a certain thing. All of that was the stuff, the identity of that all crumbled away. But our business seemed to, the more I got out of the way and let everybody else run the thing, my whole story of I can run it better and all of that started to, because that was an identity. And so as that identity crumbled of who I was supposed to be as a CEO or how I was supposed to lead or any of that, all of that, the business actually started thriving even more. And an interesting thing is also in the self-realization was this whole money game. I mean, the whole thing being this game that it didn't matter how much it's zeros, it's ones, like it just didn't matter anymore. So there was a complete freedom in
the rates you're charging. And
yes, and being able to just $1 million, sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it just doesn't. And there's a statement that keeps rolling in my head, and I don't know whose quote it is, but it's something about he who needs nothing has everything.
It's from Lao Tzu, from the
Is it Lao Tzu?
Yes.
So that's something that's really been coming clear in our work together. It is like, I just don't need anything anymore. And so in not needing anything, it's as if because I already have everything. I already have it all. And so now it's like manifesting out of the place of like, it's already done.
Yeah.
I already have it. And so it just feels like everything's so easy because it's just this unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And I thank you for the function piece and the form piece. And maybe you could fill people
Absolutely.
in on all of that. But because I knew when I heard you speak on this the first time that I needed that external somebody to kind of say, you know, we still need to do our taxes. We still need to, I have a child, you know, and we still are stewards to this young human being that's coming in. But I really thought, I'm just going to go off to the monastery.
I'm done. I don't need all of this.
I don't need relationship anymore to teach me. I don't need gurus. I don't like.
There's big tragedy to teach us anything.
Don't need any of it. And it may appear, but
this is a phase. Please go ahead, Ian.
Okay, so it's kind of a continuation on the theme of the empty space. We really, and how this can accelerate the big vision pieces. So from the empty space that opened up, had emerged in our life before you, but with no container or no context. Once we were able to drop in with you and ground these principles and really continue to open to empty, it's just nutty how exponentially quick things started to show up. We had one of our first visioning meetings with you, and a couple of things on there were we've really got to get a new CEO because neither one of us is really, that's our zone of genius or where we want to be. So within, what is this, 5 months later, we've got our first brand new CEO.
And she's amazing.
She's friggin' amazing. She's in alignment with who we are, what we are, the message. She's really empty as well. She came in that way, and that's another piece of the emptiness. So we, for years, would either have the warm body approach to hiring, like, oh, here's somebody who's excited and enthusiastic, and we need this thing done. So great, you got a job. And we'd also hire people out of a sense of lack, like we don't have that skill set.
Or my own stuff around word and sex. Who's going to want to be a CEO of a crazy sex company, you know? Like, so I had my own like little hangups around being in the sexuality industry, in an industry that's taboo itself. And now we have somebody who is like so excited.
And one of excited and grounded, and so grounded and real, and willing to take all the pieces. You know, in our visioning session, remember, I want to make this point of there's a journey from going from okay performance, low performance, to okay performance, to good performance. And when we start hitting good performance, and we get in touch with books that share about peak performance, we go to motivational seminars, we listen to speakers, coaches that are driving us to be at peak performance. I think that's a natural, valid, and very powerful phase to grow through. So going from low to peak performance, that's a journey. Now, once you get to the peak performance state, as you guys have been experiencing for years, you can pump out, you can have 72 things on your list of things to do. That's like the extreme of peak performance, okay? and I think that's a valid, very valuable phase of life and leadership, because you're learning how to make a maximum utilization of your mind, body, and spirit. And I think we need to honor that phase, and we need to relish in that phase and thank that phase of our life for all it's given us. And yet it will have diminishing returns. Like anything, that peak performance, even the seeking of it is like an internal drug. You make a little bit more push, a little bit more output physically, mentally, business-wise, whatever, and it's like there's this drug high. That high comes up, and then after a while, it goes flat again, and you want to drum yourself into peak performance again. Now that will happen cycle after cycle. And if you don't know there's anything new or anything deeper or more expansive than that, then you'll be trapped into the peak performance cycle, most likely for the rest of your life, which ends up being the peak burnout cycle from both ends, because you cannot sustain that way of being, period. And the machine and mind of the body is not meant to continuously suck more from out of it to create more output. The next phase, when those who are ready, and this is the phase of the transcendent leadership, is those who are yearning, like you guys came to it, for peak existence. What is existence about? Existence in my inner dimension, with my lover, with my teams, with my families, with my children, with life itself, with nature, with spirit, with God, with truth, with eternity. So for me, peak existence is the new fruit. It's the fruit of living this path of transcendent leadership, where we're letting go of so much excessive control. We're loosening the grip of control. We're allowing our intuition, our awareness, we're allowing coordination that's happening at a much higher level that you saw here with your new CEO, where once you dial in your internal state of being, literally opportunities come to you, literally synchronicities of the best people in the right place, the right opportunities start showing up because of the internal alignment of soul, mind, and body and being. So I want to just really recognize and acknowledge you for taking that step, because it's not everyone's willing to do that. And especially when you're getting a lot of success from your peak performance mindset, but you have to, and whoever's listening, if you know and you find yourself somewhere on this journey, please know that there's a way of operating in existence which allows you to live in peak existence itself, which is a magical, miraculous state of being where you're in creation, but also you are being created by existence.
I just want to take a moment to welcome all of our viewers who are joining us live and invite you into this conversation as well. If you have a question or a comment for Ian or Jaiya or Satyan, feel free to leave it in the comments. We're covering so much already. We've touched on so many incredible topics. And I have a question. How were you able to really make that transition? Because, you know, you have this successful business and you had all this attention and fame. And from the outside, people were probably like, wow, you've got this amazing business and you're so successful. And, you know, that can kind of get caught up in identity and ego. So for the viewer who is watching, you know, maybe they've created this very successful business, which they feel trapped in. And what would be your advice on how they can find space, as you put
it?
Good. So there is this may speak to everybody. It may speak to a smaller chunk of anybody who's listening right now, but there's the aspect of who are we? Our business is about pleasure. Our business is about love, connection, unconditional love. Ultimately, like that's also another thing with working with Satya. We're like, if our business was a person and it had a want, desire in the world, what is that want, desire? For us in our company, it's unconditional love. So, and it's this spaciousness and this freedom. So operating the old model up against the real integrated concept of who we are, what we're up to, what we're putting out in the world, there's an incongruency. There was the success and make it work and get it out, you know, marketing and like sort of like that push and grind that was happening. So that's what our lives really started to be day after day after day. Something to do, more to do, more to do, more to do.
Waking up at 4 a.m. every morning stressed. And the internal cognitive dissonance, kind of like the ceiling fan is spinning and does its thing, all of a sudden that other energy in there was like jamming a broom into the ceiling fan, and it's a destabilization. It's just like these really can't work together. So there was so much energy and incongruence where if we didn't have the tools here, we didn't have the grounding, could have turned into collapse, like
fuck it, I give up this crap, I'm done. And your other version, which is I'm disappearing from this because I don't want it anymore. Mm-hmm. So the system had become destabilized. And then we also realized we're at capacity. Like we can't put more stuff. We can't put more stuff in the box. The box is exploding, and it's just going to collapse if we try and do this. So the transition was out of absolute need, because if our purpose, our sole purpose, is bringing more unconditional love to the planet, and we're not giving unconditional love to ourselves, it's going to fall apart.
So my point was, I call it like the moment I checked all the boxes. Mm-hmm. So this was like 2 years ago, and I had all these goals in my life of things that I wanted. I had the house, I had the kid, I had the amazing partner. My business hit I never thought in my life, I grew up poor in Ohio, I never thought in my life I'd be this world-renowned sexologist with a 7-figure business. Like when all that hit, it didn't feel like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to feel like, right? I'd been seeking and chasing all of this my whole life to fill something that none of that filled. And so when I hit that, I was just like, what's the point? What is the point of all this? And so the advice that I have is to what's behind like all of the goals and the seeking and I had to start looking at it. Like I started asking these questions, like self-inquiry almost, of like, what's the point? What's the point of life? Like I just hit everything. I don't feel good. Like it didn't fill up that thing that I thought I would feel here. And I went into like a deep funk. And there's kind of this, sometimes you need a Mack truck, sometimes you need a 2x4, and sometimes it's a feather. Well, I needed a Mack truck, obviously. And so the Mack truck came, and it was just like, I just got slammed then. It was just one thing after another thing, stalking situations. And it turned into like, after that moment, 3 months later, we were in like some of the darkest stuff. Our relationship started getting rocky. It was just like, because I couldn't see a point in anything. And then I went and had my brain actually scanned, and it actually showed in my brain this imbalances and brain trauma. And I got this diagnosis of CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And it just kept like the rabbit hole of this dark depression. I've never been depressed. Like the high performer, happy, like this whole thing is all meaningless, purposeless, but that meaningless, purposeless dark, like not meaningless, purposeless, like, and so that the Mack truck was it for me, that dark night of the soul, some people call it, but it was like, I'm on the floor crying. Who am I? What am I? I don't know what this whole thing is. Like, what the fuck is going on? It was really tough.
Yeah. We went into the dark night of the soul. Our relationship actually ended. Mm-hmm. Like for a couple of weeks, it was done. We were going to start making plans of splitting everything up.
And splitting the business. And like, he wasn't going to teach anymore. I mean, we were just like, it was Becky. Ugh. And it was the best thing ever. And that, you can look back on it then and go, oh my gosh, that Mack truck, that 2x4, that was the best thing.
That was the gift
ever. Wow. And it was just such a gift to have that. So in some ways it's like, advice wise, if I could have told myself then, like, this is amazing. Look at this. I can't tell myself, and how all of it was created for you, and all of this, like the dynamic play of it all, and oh my gosh, and then you just have to laugh. Mm-hmm. And then I laughed hysterically when that realization came, and then everything changed.
And that became the beginning of the journey through a couple of things of the journey towards self-love. Where the scales fell off. Oh,
yeah, that was the thing that I wanted to say. The rising tide lifts all boats. This was my leadership. This was the number one message for my leadership, because I want to work on everybody else. I want to help everybody else. I want to help the world. I feel all their pain. I feel all their suffering. Like, I got to help them all. Mm-hmm. It's like all this pressure, and I was like holding all of it inside of me. And the person I was working with to help me heal the CPTSD, he just kept saying, Rising tide lifts all boats. Come back to you. Love you. Unconditional love for you. And then everybody gets it. When you get it, everybody gets it. And I couldn't get that until I got it. Mm-hmm. And then when I got it, every single person around me, our entire community, has just been uplifted. And all I had to do was love myself. Mm-hmm.
We are the beacons as leaders of our companies, our organizations, of our families, our relationships. The transformation that we hold within ourselves is a calling, it's a card, it's an invitation, it's an inspiration to everyone around us. And not just externally how you're living as a demonstration, but the actual transmission of who you are. I wanted to point out this journey from the dimension of identities. There's us as a spiritual being, as a divine being, as a conscious point of existence. Now, when we come into reality, when we come into this reality, we take on identities. Yeah, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a friend, I'm an enemy, I'm a business person, I'm a soccer player, whatever. We have so many merging and mutating and ever evolving identities. And many of the identities that we have are actually imprinted identities. They came from a place within us where we were imprinted. You should be this way. Women should be this way. Men should be this way. Sex should be this way. Making money should be this way and not that way. And we've got all this hodgepodge of ideas. And then we form, as from infinity, we form an identity to try to balance all these imprints and live out of that identity. Now, an identity is like a milk carton. You can use it for a while, it has value, but after a while, if you keep it sitting there, it's going to smell. It's going to have an expiration date, okay? And if you're still using that milk carton with that milk that's way, way, way expired, then you're going to spoil whatever you pour that milk in, okay? Whatever. Why? Because it's no longer valid. It's no longer needed. It's no longer serving your evolutionary path to hold that structure of identity for the next phase of one's evolution. So if I'm in the identity of a hardworking, I shall conquer, I shall make it, that's an identity. And an identity is a viewpoint with a goal. So my viewpoint may be, I am one who conquers. Because earlier on in my life, I might have had failures. I might have had experiences which said to myself, oh, I never want to relive that failure again. So now I'm going to be a strong conqueror, as an example. This could have been made unconsciously, this decision internally to say, okay, now I will never be defeated. And that veneer, that strong shell might live 1, 2, 5, 10 years, conquering, but it's there doing it not to fulfill the truth of one's being. It's there to fulfill the avoidance of going back into the failure identity. Now I'm taking on the winner identity. Mm-hmm. But again, it's an identity. It's not your true self. And every identity has a viewpoint and a goal. So the goal of the one who never wants to fail always will succeed. What's the goal? Peace of mind, perhaps financial freedom, perhaps proving to my circle, to my parents, to other imprints and other people that I feel I need to somehow show value to, that I am a somebody, I am of value, I am of worth, maybe to myself. But is that enlightenment? No. That's not transcendence. That's simply aiming to fulfill some part in us that is unwhole, and that eventually will come to an end demise. So all of us, every single one of us, will come to a place in our life where the identities that we've been holding, we've utilized their capacities. They've brought us to where we're at, and we can thank them. But then when we hold on to them too long, the world around us starts to fall apart. Staffing, relationships, it shows up as things decaying, and you don't even know why. And then we might try to hold on to that identity even stronger to keep that structure in place, where in fact this path of transcendent leadership is to recognize, I've just been wearing an identity. I can release that identity. I fulfill the identity's goals. I am successful in the way of that identity. What from myself is now the new calling. What's emerging in myself that wishes to bring and come into form in life? What do I wish to create to bring forth into life? And now, rather than operating from another identity that's based on avoiding something from the past, now we create our identity from consciousness. Now I'm a being of infinite love, unconditional love. And then the identities start falling away. And the true self, the enlightened self, if you will, that goes beyond time and space, goes beyond any description. This now becomes the seat of your soul. And that's what you've been experiencing, this profound magnetization that happens of opportunities, synchronicities, right people in the right place, finances flowering, health flowering, love flowering. This all happens, I truly believe, when we come to the seat of the soul and we allow our soul to feel that it is one with existence. And then we're ready for the next phase of awakening, which is recognizing there is no separation. That we as a leader are ultimately the leader of all existence, and that we are being led by existence.
That's so beautiful. Amazing. We actually have a question from a viewer. They say, thank you, Jaiya, Ian, Andrea, and Satyan. I was wondering if going through the peak performance, high achiever way of life equips you to be a better transcendent leader. Great question. Ian and Jaiya?
I am not the overachiever. I'm the...
Never been. You would rather dance and have fun.
Yeah. I mean, what will happen, the identity from my past that would infuse everything was basically a need to prove that I'm lovable. And I would take on activities, and I guess I'm a high performer in feeling pushed to do things for others. Any work that I took on, businesses that I've opened, I would find myself in other people's companies very quickly moving up into like managerial positions. Because they're just looking at me and they're going, okay, put that guy there. Because I'm like, I was on it. But I'm not the type of person with the 72 items on the spreadsheet. I've never been the person who's like religiously going to the gym and working out. I got my yoga practice and got all that kind of stuff lined up.
When I had my self-realization and I was like, I don't need to eat good food anymore. And I don't need to do juicing and all the vitamins and supplements. That I was the one keeping both of us you know, in that zone. And so we just both, and now what's funny is that he's coming around to being more disciplined than me. It's really funny. And I'll say for me, like, it was just part of my journey. Like, I think everybody has their own way. And for me, high performance was a really important key piece. And it was also coming out of a not being worthy. Like, I've taken I have a million courses, what are they called? Certifications. Every year I'm taking 3 new things. I got a new coach. I'm always was doing all of that, but it never filled that thing. Mm-hmm. So I think part of it is looking at, well, why are you doing all that high performance in this cause and effect universe? And then I was like, I'll just get rid of cause and effect. And I'll just prove that one and see what happens there. But.
So to speak to that question specifically, I really don't think that it matters what your personal past proclivity was. You could have been the disciplinarian. You could have been the, last minute wonder. I'd finish something at 4:00 in the morning before my exam was due the next day, and I'd get an A+.
I would have been so mad at him in college because he'd do things like he smashed some bricks and handed it in and says, "This is my set
design."
Like right before the class, whereas I was the student who
working all week long.
I would have had it done, like before the final even was there, and I would have stayed up like 6 weeks straight to make it all perfect, and then he would have gotten the A and I would have gotten the C because I overdid it. So what
it goes back to is the disappearance or the integration of all the identities, so that we can become zero identity space. And then there's the opportunity to choose different iterations, because if we're in the function realm, then instead of going in with leading people with all of my past habits and all of the ways of doing it before. If I clear all those polarities, if I clear all of those agendas, the inherited identities, and I come from empty, I then can choose the iteration of myself that needs to come forward. This is the moment where I need to be really clear, really sharp, really on it, and give direction to a team member because things are not coming together the way they need to. This is another moment, boom, I can choose soft, loving, open, accepting, yay, full of celebration for the team, Ian. So we look at ourselves like action figures.
Avatars. Action figure Jaiya.
And it's just like, okay, here's the software to put in at that moment, and then I don't need that anymore. So it again goes back to this opening up a space of sort of like the blank canvas, and from nothing, we can choose anything. And something we've been talking a bit about is this manifestation in the field, or just all the energy that's flowing out there. Infinite possibility everywhere all the time. Our frequencies were formerly tuned to lack, a sense of, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, and seeking and finding and looking for the next way to get to the next level to earn the next money, blah, blah, blah. And in the clearing, in going to empty, over the last year, there have been just all of, you were pointing to them earlier, Satya, these kismets that show up. The putting something into the vision, and without having efforted it, it shows up. So I want to give one example that I'm just like, oh, wow, that's crazy. So in working with Satyan during one of the sessions, we're going through kind of like there's energy around us, some celebrity energy, there's some potential marketing and partnership energies, but nothing crystallizing. And at one of the very first meetings, we're visioning the year, and we have some celebrity connections and all that, and that could be a really big boost if they're willing to come out and talk about their experience with the blueprints. So Satyan throws out this thing of, oh, and with this, yes, with the whole Hollywood thing, create an intimate dinner in Hollywood for some influencers with all of these people that you can connect in a room. And I was like, I was a little bit of an ass clench there, like, oh, they've got to contact people and, push them for this thing from the contacts who are more like acquaintances rather than deep connections. And then boom, a celebrity pops up who found the blueprints, and she on her own became a voice box for it. She's like, blah, blah, blah.
And The View was mentioning
it and
got picked up people.
And she found us through some close friends in our inner circle who are totally in this empty, inline, vibed space. They introduced us to her, and now I went up to her at an event that we were all at, and with the intention of getting to this thing of like, hey, what about putting together a dinner? I'm one sentence into the conversation, just talking about wanting to see what that looks like, what that could look like. And she's like, oh my God, yes, I love that. That's exactly what I do. I bring in, this is what I've been doing for your friends, John and Christina. I've got Gwyneth Paltrow coming in, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And so in just a couple of months, we're going to be doing something with her and that circle of influencers in LA. And it was effortless. It just poof. Like, I didn't know where that was coming from. And now I've got one of the influencers who's going to bring the influencers and just collaborate with us and make it happen. So there's a multitude of those going on for us.
Well, and it's so interesting because when you have these patterns, you think that that's why you're achieving this success. And then when you can let go of these habitual patterns, you find that there's even greater success with less effort, and even situations where there's no effort. And Satyan, can you speak to the question of, is being a high achiever a way to prepare you for being a transcendent leader?
Well, what I have to say about that is, if you are, great. And go ahead and run it to its nth degree. And when it's no longer supporting you and you feel burned out and you feel you've come closer to the end of that train where you don't want to pump out anymore, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you're sick and tired of being at your edge, being pushed in overwhelmed states and continuous driven states of being, when it's no longer a high for you, but now a burden, when it's no longer giving you a false sense of caffeine high to be conquering or to overcome the obstacle or to bring yourself up from the bottom again. We've got these hero imprints. And part of the hero imprints is woe to victory. And who doesn't want to be a hero? Especially, we've seen all these TV shows, movies growing up of feminine heroes, princesses, male heroes, CEOs, billionaires. We got all these imprints, right? And so that's all of that. When you're sick and tired of the doing that's not resulting in more fulfillment, more joy, more spiritual freedom, more spaciousness. And when you've lost touch with the magic, the actual dance of magic, the miraculous nature of existence, which is inexplicable, and when you're dry and cold, then it's a really valid time to go and to give yourself a serious look and go, will doing more of what I'm doing going to create the same thing? Is it going to take me further? And if you're truly honest, you know it's not going to. And that's actually a very sobering and sacred moment, I believe, truly. We will all come to that as leaders. We'll all come to that somewhere in our journey where the old models of control, strength, strong arming, excessive willpower, they're coming to an end. The world doesn't operate that way. One of my mentors shared that struggle is effort that's laced with negative emotion. Effort is required. We need to do things to pick up, get groceries, do the work that we do in the day. But the struggle is the excess energy of importance that we've drummed up in ourselves, that we've attributed to our business, attributed to things daily that get us to pull our hair out, as you can see here, is because I had a lot of things that I thought were so important. So part of this journey to go from peak performance to whatever magical state, I call it peak existence, as leaders, transcendent leadership, is to recognize that the control that led us to here needs to be rescinded for the deeper, the magnificent, the divine orchestration, which is the ultimate control mechanism to have its way with you, to have its way with your business, to have its way with your life. And this requires a tuning in, removing, and this is what we do at our retreats and such. We move away from the morass of input and data and vibration and all this noise that we're all around. We retreat from the world. We get in touch back with nature, with our essence. And then when we do that, there's deeper messages that have been waiting to be listened to start to listen to. Now we can have the ears and the space, the quietude to listen to that inner voice, that inner calling. And then when we do, and we align and we surrender to that next voice, that deepest voice, the voice that has no sound, but that's a knowing that transcends time and space, transcends any locality, that essential divine knowingness, that wisdom, that lands us like a wave, drops us into the right place. And when we look from a place of, okay, I'm ready for expansion, I'm ready for absolute true freedom, not the freedom that the world has told me I need to attain, but the freedom that cannot be gotten. That's the ultimate act of faith. That's the ultimate act of surrender. And surrender is such a crucial part of this cultivation of transcendent leadership. Ultimately, it's loosening and letting go of the grip of control and trusting what's left when the grip of control is released will take you to your deepest dharma, the garden of your soul, truly.
So powerful. I know I'm myself a recovering high achiever as well. And exactly what you say, when you're no longer attached to like filling that void. And now when you achieve, you are achieving from a place of oneness, and it's a completely different experience. Well, we have covered so much, and I know that we're just scratching the surface of your knowledge, your awareness, and all the gifts that you have to share. So can we conclude with, if you could give one piece of advice, one action step, one takeaway to the viewer who is in their business, they're achieving success, and yet they know that they're ready to go to become a transcendent leader, what is that one shift, that one piece of advice that they can take away today and implement?
One obvious one, and I might come up with something beside this, but it's work with Satyan. He's, I mean, my experience of Satyan is his toolkit is like deep and endless, from everything from those practices and tools that can help
the functioning
the part, the glow part, really detaching from the identity so that the opening of that empty space, you can get present to it. So that work, and finding a guide who's been there, because there really is this gap of like we spoke to, we started having these experiences of this freedom, but the form part and the function part and the flow part, it's just, they didn't feel like they coexisted with the function, with the glow part. So having the tools that Satyan's brought in to help really integrate have been the needle mover of how it actually functions in third dimensional reality. Like, we're not the gurus who've run off to the cave because we had this experience. We're
Jaiya's ready for her cave.
Yeah. Well, but even in the cave, there's an ease. So here's this thing. Sorry, I'm going off on a little tangent here. The piece about doing, you'll hear this phrase of like doing, non-doing, or there's nothing to do. Obviously, there's stuff to do. I pick up the coffee cup. I'm here talking on this thing, but there's no longer a sense of drain. Like, oh, I got to get this done. I'm slogging through it. When you're empty, there's no doer doing it. It's just like, oh, this is what's appearing. Oh, this is the thing that's to be done. There's an ease and a grace and a flow. And then there's even more inspiration and energy that starts to get lifted inside of that. Mm-hmm. And the leadership, again, pieces that Satyan's been working with us on are really being able to be in that empty leadership space. And that's allowing Jaiya stepped back really very intensely on leading the company. I've stepped forward more, and in stepping forward and all the freedom, I'm now more in a guiding position rather than a dictating or driving position. It's just, here's what's appearing, here's where we're going next, and allowing others to rise up in our organization, and really a deep trust, like giving of trust to those people who are on the mission with us and trusting that.
One of the frames that Sachin gave us was, we're no longer like doing what we thought we were doing. Now we're raising up other transcendent leaders. And that frame for me, was a big shift of, oh, now I'm training up or bringing up others into their own transcendent leadership. And that's been really powerful. And then the other piece of advice is the isness in your business. I love this, just finding, and Ian spoke to it, but it's it just keeps unfolding. It's like, it's what's appearing, it's unfolding. And yeah, I could get like looking at my schedule, I'm booked for an entire year. Like, my schedule is completely packed, but each day is just, this is what it is. Whereas that used to be like such a stress. And so the more you can let go into, this is what is, this is what's unfolding. We talk about being in the moment, but that language is a little not exactly it, but it's because it's always now. It always is.
Even if you're thinking about next year and last year and everything else, it's always now.
That's it too. So that's been my greatest freedom in all of this, has been letting go of my doer identity, letting go of my high achiever identity, letting go of cause and effect and time and space and all of it, and just being in the isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to share about that, to tie this up in a very pragmatic, down-to-earth way that everyone will understand, all this inner development, relinquishing of the old patterns and identities, the holding of these transcendent values and principles and applying it with your teams, the net result, down to earth, is next year we have developed a plan of 300 to 400% increase in revenues and a 75% decrease in how much work that you're going to have to do. So you'll be doing 20 to 25% of actual work that you're going to be conscripted to go to, as opposed to this year, with a 300 to 400% revenue expansion. Yeah. So if we think about that, 25% to do 4 times more, that is down to earth, the actual results of taking on transcendent leadership as a way of life, and having the courage and the willingness to implement the philosophies and the architecture into one's personal and professional life. This is what it generates. Mm-hmm. And so not only is it a metaphysical awakening, not only is it an emotional freedom that arises and a time freedom, big time, it also has a direct impact on the success of our businesses and the growth and the joy within our teams. And so this is an overall way of life which has deep metaphysical roots and is firmly grounded in the transcendent, and at the same time takes into account that we are here in the world to play with each other as masters and to share and to receive the gifts of our collective wisdoms. So that's the essence.
Wow. And that is a wonderful way to conclude this very powerful episode. Thank you, Ian and Jaiya, for being our guests. Thank you for shining your light and showing what's possible in relationship, in business, in health, and sexuality, and freedom, and truly embodying the transcendent leader.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and we are so excited to continue this journey. Satyen, thank you as always for bringing us all together.
Thank you, Andrea. Always a joy and a pleasure. Thank you, Jaiya. Thank you, Ian, for your dedication and ongoing dedication. It's really a joy and a pleasure. Really an honor.
Thank you both.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please remember that we are here for you. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more at transcendentceo.com. And until next time, here's to your transcendence.